right, welcome to the first lesson in semester 2. It's chapter 8, it's polynomials. Something you need to be so good at is factoring. So we'll do a little bit of review on factoring, but then if you still feel like it's something you need to work on, then I need you to take initiative for yourself. Otherwise, you will cry for the rest of this chapter. Factoring is kind of the basic level for this chapter. Okay. With that being said, it doesn't mean you're basic if you can't factor. It means I need you to be good at factoring so that this new stuff that you learn, the factoring doesn't get in the way. Okay? So let's start with factoring difference of squares. Okay? You've done this before. And when you see this, you might go, what does all this mean? Okay. Just know that when it's difference of squares, there's two of them. There's a minus in the middle, and you can square root both of them. Okay? And when you do that, you will get one being minus and one being plus. And we've done this before, but let's just make sure we're solid on it, okay? So what would I do? Let's see, there's two of them, 1, 2. There's a minus in the middle, and I can square root this, and I can square root this. The square root of x squared is x. The square root of 16 is 4. And some of you go, but you can't take the square root of negative 16. You're not. You're taking the square root of the 16, and the minus happens to be in the middle. So what do? Two sets of parentheses. Put the x first. Put the 4 second. One gets a plus. One gets a minus. And that's all I want for that one, okay? Now look at this one. There's two of them. There's a minus in the middle. But can you square root this? No, you can't. But what you can do is you can take a 2 out from that. You're not dividing it out. You're not solving. You're just factoring, okay? Now you can, from here, square root, square root of x squared is x, square root of 25 is 5. Now, 1, 2, first guy, last one. One gets a plus, one gets a minus. It doesn't matter the order, okay? But don't forget to bring down the 2. And let me highlight that 2 right there to remind you about it, okay? All right, let's look at the next one. There's two of them. There's a minus in the middle. I can square root both. So I'll square root this and I'll square root this. If I look at the first one is 7x. The second one is 9. Two sets of parentheses. 7x, 7x, 9, 9. One gets a plus, one gets a minus. Okay? Same thing as this, just a little bit bigger numbers, a little bit more complex. Okay, there's two of them. I can square root both, but there is not a minus. So that would be not factorable. Now, if I asked you to solve these, this problem instead, number 1, would say x squared minus 16 equals 0. It would say 2x squared minus 50 equals 0. It would say x squared plus 9 equals 0. If I was solving, I could solve them like this. X plus 4, x minus 4, set it equal to 0, done. Factored it to x minus 5, x plus 5. A 2 doesn't help me solve. It helps me factor, but not solve. 5 and negative 5. This one we said wasn't factorable, but I can solve it. Square root, square root. And remember, that means it's imaginary. That means, and I'm trying to remind you of all of things, that this parabola crosses at 4 and negative 4. This parabola crosses at 5 and negative 5. This parabola is imaginary, so it doesn't cross the x-axis, but it's still a parabola. And I still have 2 answers. Hopefully some of that's coming back. Okay? So we did sum of squares. Now we're going to do sum of cubes. Okay? So, if you'll notice in this one, there is just the difference of squares. That means there's got to be a minus in the middle. But this one has the sum of cubes and the difference of cubes. Okay, so what is the rule? There's got to be 2 of them, and you've got to be able to cube root both of them. Okay? So, notice the difference. If it's difference of squares, it has to be a minus. But if it's sum of cubes or difference of cubes, it doesn't matter if it's plus or minus. Why is that the case? Because the square root of 9 is 3. but you cannot take the square root of negative 9. Okay, so there's only one option. The cube root of 27 is 3, because what times what times what is 27, and that's 3. And the cube root of negative 27 is negative 3. You can do the positive and the negative. You have two options. Okay, so what do? Let me zoom it in. And you'll notice that these are very similar. There's the plus and the minus. I want you to see how they relate to each other. Okay, so based on the rules, there has to be two of them, 1, 2, and I have to be able to cube root both. I can. So I'm going to do cube root. What times what times what is x cubed? X. What times what times what is 27? That's 3. And technically I should be going cube root, cube root. But I think we're just doing this for our own sanity. So, oops, I should have put that not in blue. So that'd be 3. Now here's how it's a little bit different. In sum of squares, there were 2 parentheses. They looked exactly the same, okay, because that's squared. But I have to get a cube, so you're going to do a little parenthesis and a big parenthesis. You take the first guy, you put it there, you put it there, okay? If this is plus, this is plus. So now let's look. I want you to see the difference between these two. So cube root x, cube root 3, cube, cube. Little parenthesis, big parenthesis. First one here, second one here. But since this is minus, this is minus. Hopefully you're seeing the patterns. Now here's where it's a little bit different. If you look here, the rule says square the first guy, square the last guy, 3 squared is 9. Then take these two, the 3 and the x, put them together. 3 times x is 3x. If this is plus, this is minus plus. Okay, let's do it over here. Square the first guy, square the last guy, take these two, put them together. If this is minus, this is plus plus. So what is the pattern? If this is plus, that's plus. If this is minus, that's minus. And whatever that is, that would be the opposite. Whatever that is, that would be the opposite. And these two are positive. That way when you multiply, a positive times a positive gives you a positive. A negative times a positive gives you a negative. Okay? So let's go to the next one. Notice they're very similar. Okay? So I'm going to do the cube root. What times what times what is x? Now, what times what times what equals 125y cubed is 5y. Because 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. Little parenthesis, big parenthesis. First one, second one. Since that's plus, that's plus. Square x squared. Square this one, and I will show you what it means because I think this is how people struggle. If I go 5y squared, distribute, distribute. Okay, let me make that a little bit bigger so you can see. Okay, and 5 squared is 25, and y squared is y squared. Then take these two and put them together. An x, 5y, is 5xy. If this is plus, this is minus plus. Okay, we're not solving right now. All we're going to do right now is factor, okay? So now I want you to do this one by yourself. Okay? Same thing. If you have to look over here, fine, but I want you to try not to. See if you can do this problem without looking over there. If you have to look, great. It's just notes. No big deal. If that's minus, that's minus. Square the first, square the last. Take these two, put them together. If this is minus, this is plus plus. Okay. Let's do the next one. Same thing. Okay. What times what times what is y cubed? What times what times what is 64z cubed? 4z. Okay. This should kind of be not as big of a deal anymore. First guy, second guy. Square the first guy. Square the last guy. Don't forget that. Take the 4, the y, and the z. 4y, z. If this is plus minus plus. Same thing over here. Okay?
You need to take your temperature every day when you get
cube root, y, 4z. If you are still struggling at this point, you need to be texting me. because I feel like this is the sixth one and there's something missing that I'm not explaining to you well enough that you understand. Okay? If this is minus plus, plus. All right, let's go to this one. There's two of them. There's, I can take the sixth root, but I can't do 250 because I can't think of what times what times what is 250. So what am I going to have to do? I'm going to take out a 2. How did I know that? They're both even. That's the first thing I look at. So I take out a 2. I'd be left with 125 and 6 plus 116 and cubed. I think I did that wrong. Can you make that? I'll make that 216. Okay. Now I can do this one. What times what times what is 125 n to the 6th, and it's 5m squared. And some of you go, what? Why is it m squared? You've got to do it 3 times. So to get 125, 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. To get m to the 6th, it's m squared, m squared, m squared. Remember, when you multiply, it really means you're adding. Okay? So then little, big. Oh, I didn't do this one. I'm so sorry. Then there's this one. What times what times what is 216? And some of you go, I don't know that one. In your calculator, go 3 times 3 times 3. No. 4 times 4 times 4. No. 5 times 5 times 5. No. Which one is it? Okay? 6n. First one. Second one. Plus, plus. Square the first one. Sometimes showing that work makes it easier. Sometimes we struggle when we do things in our head, and then we get the wrong answer, and we don't know why. Take these two, put them together. We have a 5 and a 6. We are multiplying. So 30m squared n. I didn't leave enough space. Sorry. Since this is plus, this is minus plus. Now, how come my answer is wrong? Do you remember in the problem up here when I took out the 2? I've got to do the same thing. I took out a 2, so I've got to bring it down. Now I'm done. Try this one yourself, knowing it's the same thing but minus. And I will just put the answer, okay? Again, if you are struggling, there is no judgment, but you need to do something about it so that you're no problem. If you go, oh, well, I'll eventually get it, what is it that you're going to do differently that you will eventually get it? Okay? All right. So now, let's go down to this one. Now what they want you to do is, okay, I gave you a problem. I want it in factored form. Factored form just means factor. So what am I going to do? I'm going to have to look at this right here and make a decision. All right? It's to the third power. So if it's to the third power, I know it's not difference of squares. It looks like sum of cubes. Well, I can figure out what times what times what is 27. Oh, okay, that works. So then what times what times what? X. What times what times what? 3. So in factored form, this is, and I'm going to put it down here because there's not enough space, little parenthesis, big parenthesis, x, 3, plus, plus, square the first guy, square the last guy, take those two, put them together, plus, minus, plus. Okay? So, we did that. Now what we're going to do is find the roots, the zeros, which means we're going to set this equal to, so when I'm doing the zeros, I'm going to set this equal to 0. So if I set this equal to 0, this one's a lot easier. Subtract 3, x equals negative 3. So one of the zeros is negative 3. The problem is, if I try to do this one, and I try to magic exit two numbers that multiply and add, I can't do it. If I could have done it, I would have factored it more in factored form. So, if you'll notice, in none of these problems did I keep going. I didn't keep going. I didn't keep going. Sorry. Let me move that out of the way. I didn't keep going. I can't keep going. If I could, I would have. Okay? So I cannot do that, which means my only choice is to use the quadratic formula. You need to be good at the quadratic formula. Let me write it down. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. Okay, so you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to identify a and b and c. And some of